Welcome back to Squawk Box this morning. Consumers are shifting their spending from in-store to online, and e-commerce presence has now become so critical for businesses just to stay afloat. And many rely on platforms like cloud-based Shopify, which has now jumped 73% since the WHO declared a pandemic in mid-March. Shopify powers sites for 1 million businesses worldwide, including Allbirds, Staples, and PepsiCo, and has some big plans for its own business, possibly to rival the likes of Amazon. It has been one of the story stocks, if you will, of this pandemic. Harley Finkelstein is the Shopify's chief operating officer, and he joins us now. It's great to see you, Harley. Thanks for coming on. This has been a remarkable story, and the expansion of what's even taken place for you over the past 2 months now is remarkable, including a partnership with Facebook, which I want to talk about in just a minute. But in terms of just insight, if you could provide it in terms of big surprises, in terms of what you're seeing retailers on the platform, what's the one thing that you think people haven't fully appreciated about this e-commerce phenomenon?
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me on the show, as always. A couple things. The first thing is that I think the year 2030, in terms of what retail and commerce would look like in 2030, has been pulled into 2020. And that sort of happens in two ways. On the supply side, you actually have a tale of two completely different retail worlds. You have these archaic retailers that have been resisting change, that viewed multi-channel as a strategy, which it's not, it's a tactic. And then you have on the other side, these resilient retailers, some of these companies that are new to the market, that have been around for a couple of years, that have very quickly pivoted and adapted, and they're succeeding. But you also have companies like Lindt and Heinz Ketchup that are using Shopify and in a matter of a couple of days completely changed their business model to go direct to consumer. And in many ways, it's really exciting, but there is two different retail worlds. On the other side, you have demand. And I think consumers are voting with their wallets right now. They want to buy from independent brands. But also, I think you saw the stat over the weekend. I think I saw a CNBC tweet about this, that e-commerce as a percentage of total retail, it took about 8 years to go from like 5% to like 15%. And it's taken 10 weeks to go from 15% to over 24% or 25%. So you have this incredible catalyzing of retail and commerce. And those that are adapting are doing really great. And those that aren't, unfortunately, are being left behind.
It sounds like you are bearish, though, on the idea of multi-channel. Why is that?
No, not bearish at all. In fact, just the opposite. I just think the fact that we're still talking about multi-channel shows how archaic some of these old retailers were. When you think about the companies that have struggled, the Forever 21s, the Barneys, the Pier 1s, the Neiman Marcuses, the J. Crews, they viewed multi-channel as a strategy. That's not the strategy. The strategy is sell everywhere where your consumers are. And if that's online or offline or on Facebook or Instagram or on marketplaces, that is the strategy, is to sell everywhere. And I think that a lot of these retailers simply, they didn't view it that way. They viewed this multi-channel as a strategy in itself, and that was wrong.
Right. Harley, explain the partnership with Facebook, because there's a number of analysts out there that are bullish about it. And I'll tell you some other investors that I think are a little scared of it. In terms of how much of the business they may ultimately get, even though you're going to be tied into it, that they might ultimately be able to either peel off or take share of.
Yeah, we don't see it that way at all. In fact, we've been working with Facebook for over 5 years now. In fact, as soon as they started thinking about commerce and retail, we've been a part of those conversations and have been their partner on it. I think Shopify is the best at commerce globally. I think Facebook has the biggest reach. And so connecting the million or more brands on Shopify with consumers, in many cases that are spending time on Facebook and Instagram, we think is a great match and a great partnership. But remember, what Shopify has really become, and I know you talked about this a bit in your intro, is that we are not just an e-commerce provider. We really are this retail operating system. And what we want to do is enable brands to sell anywhere where they have consumers, whether it's online or offline or on Facebook or on marketplaces. But it all feeds back into one centralized back office or retail operating system, if you will. And so the more places that merchants and brands can sell, the more they make, the more complexity there is, and the more value Shopify provides them.
You are in the very early stages of getting into the fulfillment business, which would put you directly at odds or at becoming a true rival, if you will, with Amazon. What's the timeline of that look like? What are the services that you would need to provide, and what does that investment require?
Yeah, it's a great question. So beyond, enabling brands to sell in all these different channels and creating that retail operating system, one thing we started doing the last couple of years is thinking about this new area called merchant solutions. What are the things that every SMB, every entrepreneur needs, but they themselves on their own cannot get? So we started with payments by creating Shopify Payments. We then created Shopify Capital. We've now given out about $1 billion of capital to small businesses. We've created new things. We mentioned our balance product yesterday at the Reunite call. But Shopify Fulfillment Network is one of those things that every merchant on their own cannot simply get affordable 2-day shipping. However, Shopify in aggregate right now, if you just look at our US stores, we are the second largest online retailer in America after Amazon, beyond and above everybody else. And that means we can go and negotiate on behalf of 1 million stores. And instead of keeping the economies of scale for ourselves, we can give the economies of scale directly to the small businesses and level that playing field. So for SFN, we've said that we need about 5 years to do this. We're about 1 year in. We have dozens of people already using it, dozens of brands already using the fulfillment network. But what we want to do is expand it so that any small business or big business can tap into our network and can do 2-day affordable shipping eventually anywhere in the world. And they don't have to use some big marketplaces product where they put their branding on the boxes and they have to sell in their marketplace. We're just trying to level the playing field for entrepreneurs, and this is another way to do that.